Welcome to Lynn Cullen Live. Talk radio without the static. Email your questions and comments to lynncullenshow@gmail.com. And now your host, Lynn Cullen.
Yep, that's me. Or that is I. Lynn Cullen, happy, well, you don't say happy Pearl Harbor Day. I remember the first time I said happy Easter to somebody. You learn these things, like you don't say happy Yom Kippur either. Yeah, you just living in a culturally diverse country, little by little, we get to know things about each other's religions and stuff. Pearl Harbor, jeez. I mean, I wasn't alive, but I remember it. How come when I saw that date, I knew? I have a feeling that knowledge of our history is not as great as it once was, so that a generation from now, no one's going to remember. God, I hope not. God, I hope this is not true. Will not remember January 6th, maybe even 9/11. I don't know. Things seem to move so fast that any concern or grounding that about the past, grounding we might have if we knew the past. You know, it was Santayana who said, those who, I don't know, who said that stuff? Those who don't know their history or are condemned to repeat it. We are living that right now. Dear God, I know, I paraphrased. Happy Hanukkah, too. The first night. Oh, dear God in heaven. Okay, so where do I start? Okay, I'm going to start with something that that I read some time ago, and then bango, it popped up in my hard copy in the actual New York Times that was delivered today, which just goes to show you that getting the print paper is somewhat of a fool's errand. I don't get it. I mean, I end up everything that I see in the paper I've read easily 24 hours before, and in some cases a week before, when it comes to things like opinion pieces or feature pieces. So why do I spend ridiculous amounts of money to get the paper delivered? There is no good answer, I assure you, other than this need. It's not a need. This desire I have to have a physical paper. It's like I've never read a book that wasn't physically in my hand, and I don't intend to. I'm old school in this way. There's something about the tactile nature of having something right in front of me. I'm sorry, but that's the way it was for most of my life, and I'm unwilling to let that go. And so, at great expense and total stupidity, I continue to pay for the New York Times print. But the piece I'm talking about is a piece by David French that caught my eye a long time ago, it seems, and finds itself in the paper today. And in it, he lauds somebody, Rene de Resta. No need to remember that, as coining a term that he found brilliant. And I mean, I don't know if it's brilliant. It certainly is. It's a good one. The term is bespoke realities. Now, I have to tell you, the word bespoke, Bespoke, sounds like something that you'd find in the Bible, doesn't it? Like, and he bespoke of blah blah blah, right? And I remember when I started seeing the word bespoke appended to things like jacket, bespoke jacket. I thought, what? And for those of you who, for some reason, maybe are a little behind me on this, bespoke is usually used for clothing, and it comes from the Brits. That's maybe why I hadn't known what it is, but it means custom made, bespoke. And as far as I know, is not. I don't know how they came. Anyway, bespoke. It's something that rich people can indulge in. Custom made. So the term that caught David French's eye or ear was bespoke realities. And that is a darn good way to talk about the reality of how we gather information now and come to an appreciation or a supposed understanding of the world and events and stuff. The term that used to be used, well, the two were silos and bubbles, right? I prefer bespoke reality because I think it doesn't matter. What the hell? Who cares what you prefer? Silos, I'm sorry, I come from Wisconsin, and every time somebody said we're all in our silos, I thought, you don't want to be in a silo. Well, which is actually, that's... and bubbles, frankly, I wouldn't want to be inside a bubble either. So, the subject matter, obviously, is how we are all able these days, more than ever before, to live in a reality of our own making. And it has brought us to some pretty frightening places where we can't even agree amongst ourselves on some pretty basic stuff. And it is why, of course, you have millions upon millions of Americans living in what appears to be an entirely different universe with its own set of facts, history, fears, concerns. And I think the point of the article is that we all are susceptible to creating bespoke realities, and it's damn hard not to in this day and age. So we should start by owning up to the fact that you and I, by virtue of actually being seemingly together right now, are part of a shared community that is comfortable in the same bespoke reality. Now, we would say, no, we're living in the real world. It's not custom made, it's what is. But David French makes a big to-do about understanding and how important it is to recognize that none of us are immune to the temptations of living in a bespoke reality. And they're huge. It's human nature to want to understand. Why am I here? What the hell's going on? Somebody tell me. That's why we have religion. And so none of us are immune. We fall prey to wanting a certain reality. And because we live in this technological, algorithmic world, we can opt in to be fed only those things which we already agree with and which make us feel comfortable. I'm pausing lest any of you actually say, well, that's not what I do. And if that is you, give me a call. I mean, you're an oddball and you should be proud of it. Most of us watch things we know we'll like. We read things we know that will agree with us and hence tell us how brilliant we are. And that makes us no different than the people living in bespoke realities we look down our noses at. It is human nature to follow the path of least resistance. French says it's what feels comfortable. But the reality is that understanding the real world is not comfortable. And it's not easy. There's no path of least resistance. There's a resistance everywhere you turn. Understanding anything requires effort, requires challenging ourselves. And frankly, if somebody gives you an opportunity not to have to, most of us will opt for that. So the piece points out that in this media ecosystem that is so huge and is so aware of what your biases already are, you know, the little data collecting, every click you make, everybody, you know, they know what it is you want to see. And so they feed you more of it. And then you're always protected from receiving any information that might cause you to question what you think. I think this is a huge reality. I don't see how we ever get around it. Genie's out of the bottle, cat's out of the bag. But the thing is it's not good. It's not good. And it leads inevitably to sort of where we are now, but obviously could get worse. I just want to point out, I'm going to read you one paragraph here. Combine vast choice of information with algorithmic sorting, and we now possess a remarkable ability to become arguably the most comprehensively, voluntarily, and cooperatively misinformed generation of people ever to walk the earth. And he goes on to say that he threw in voluntarily and cooperatively because we, Americans, don't live in North Korea, in Russia, or in the People's Republic of China, where we are told what our beliefs are and what our reality is. No, Americans are drunk, he says, on freedom by comparison. And we are misinformed not because the government is systematically lying or suppressing the truth, no matter what your bespoke reality tells you. We are misinformed because we like the misinformation we receive and are eager for more. And God knows the marketplace is very, very happy to provide us with all the misinformation we want. So remember that every once in a while, because I think this is true. I'd be stunned if somebody would argue with it. I think it's true. And I think we should all wonder, not be quite so smug, so self-assured about what it is our bespoke realities don't have quite right. Right? God knows it's easy to look at the bespoke realities of the Republicans and, yo, the head explodes. And I will say that I don't think our bespoke reality is quite so divorced from reality. Wow. No, they just create. They are really all in on bespoke reality. I'm very uncomfortable with it. Have you seen what's going on with the Republicans lately? Listen, I did not watch the debate, nor would I subject myself to that. Although it could be said that that is me avoiding, looking at this other reality. Oh, God. But if I know it gives me indigestion, do I want to? I don't know. So, there's shoes dropping all over the place. In Nevada, the people who tried to steal the election, the fake electors, they are now looking at prison. A grand jury in Nevada yesterday charged 6 people for falsely saying that they were legitimate presidential electors. This all has to do with our absurd electoral college. But their intent was to file fake electoral votes for Trump to replace the real state's vote for Joe Biden. And the 6 Republicans who were charged yesterday include the chair and the vice chair of the Nevada Republican Party. Fine people all around. And if convicted, they could get 9 years in prison, but they won't. They should. And Nevada is not, as you know, is not the first state to charge the fake electors. Georgia has done so. Michigan has done so. Wisconsin did something different. They went after them in a civil lawsuit, and the settlement that the fake electors agreed to involved explaining in writing to what they had done and agreeing that they had in fact attempted to subvert the election. So those guys got off easy. But so you had these fake electors in Wisconsin, Nevada, Georgia, Michigan, all being held to account. You've got, as you know, Donald Trump and Meadows and all those creepy lawyers of theirs and other fellow travelers being held to account, which is, of course, the good news. Here's some bad news with these Republicans. Have you noticed that more and more of them are running? They're just running out of, they're saying, I'm done. Like Kevin McCarthy, former speaker, has said he's done by the end of the month. He's out. That career that he had nursed and yearned for, he's out. And he's hardly alone. The thing is, and you could say, be gone. Oh, be gone. Oh, with you. But here's the problem. A lot of the people who are going are Republicans who are not quite as crazed as the others who are staying. So that, just in case you're not paying attention, what was his name? Speaking of not paying attention, McHenry, the guy with the bow tie or something, who was the interim speaker for a second in between McCarthy and the horror show we've got now, Johnson. He has since said, I'm out. He will not run again. And you could say, who cares? Good riddance. But I forget who I was reading. He likened these people. They're not MAGA exactly. They're institutionalists, is what he said. These are what now passes for a reasonable Republican. So to us, they don't look so reasonable, but they're more reasonable than Matt Gaetz and Marjorie Taylor Greene and that whole crowd, Tuberville, those folks. And so the folks who aren't that far gone are going. Which means that the Republicans in the Congress will increasingly be this frightening, anti-democratic, authoritarian Trumpian. So Donald Trump continues to solidify his hold on this party. Because the people not all in, they might be 85% in, but that's not enough. They're leaving. They can't take it. So you have, what's this guy named Buck? I mean, I think of him as just right wing beyond belief, and he's out. He says, I can't do this. Because he did not buy into the election was rigged. And I guess the cognitive dissonance in his head is so huge, he can't stand it anymore. He's gone. And the thing is, the Republican voters will replace these people with worse people. Remember a guy named Gonzalez? He left, I don't know, did he leave earlier in the year? He left, he voted in favor of Trump's second impeachment. And he left not long after that. Why? He was very straightforward about it. He got the hell out of Dodge because of threats to his and his family's life. That is the same for another former Republican congressman, an institutionalist, Peter Meyer. He also voted to impeach Trump second time around. And he got the hell out of Dodge too. And he said that he purchased the day after he made that vote, he purchased body armor and made changes to his daily schedule because of threats against his life. And he has also said publicly that he knows of many Republican colleagues who voted not to certify the election, knowing that the election should have been certified, but they were scared to death for themselves and their families. So that's scary. And then there's this. Rolling Stone reported that the now speaker, creepy Mike Johnson, Tuesday night gave a speech which was being live streamed, although nobody apparently told him, because Rolling Stone's reporter said if somebody had told him and he still said all these things, whoa. He was speaking to a group called the National Association of Christian Lawmakers. And he told them that none other than the Lord had appointed him to be the, quote, new Moses. God Almighty. He's going to lead them to the promised land. Yeah, he is. God appointed him. I don't know if he saw a burning bush. I have no idea, but knowing this guy, he very well may have. He went on to tell the enthralled audience that the United States is engaged in a battle and a great struggle for the future of our republic. And he told them not to worry, that they would prevail. These are the Republicans who write. So we're going to let Ukraine now just go? Dear God in heaven, God help us. I'll quote the president. If Putin takes Ukraine, he won't stop there. It's important to see the long run here. He's going to keep going. He's made that pretty clear. If Putin attacks a NATO ally, if he keeps going and then he attacks another NATO ally, well, we've committed as a NATO member that we would defend every inch of NATO territory. Well, then we'll have something that we don't seek and that we don't have today. American troops fighting Russian troops. But the Republicans are incapable of looking, I guess, beyond, I don't know, the next crazed utterance from their orange leader. I don't know. Wow. Milton writes, I'd argue that the bespoke reality you are referring to is a luxury or a consequence of the privileged class. Poor, minorities, and marginalized people haven't the power or acumen to create their own realities because they struggle to survive in the bespoken realities of the privileged class. Getting this right? Describing the bespoken realities of the privileged class. He says most of us are too busy trying to make our way on an uneven playing field to even be able to imagine creating our own panacea. Point well taken. Do you see this story? Wow. I mean, for all I know, you're way ahead of me on this. This woman in Ohio, I think, maybe Massachusetts. What's the difference? There's quite a difference. Anyway, her name is Ashley. I don't know how to pronounce the last name, Randall or Randall Lee. It's Randall with an E on the end, which is odd. And her father, her beloved father, was dying of lung cancer. And they were watching TV together on the couch, and he told her that he wasn't who she thought he was. That he had been on the run for more than half a century. And he figured the feds were still looking for him. He said his name was not the name he had that she knew, Thomas Randall, or Randall-Lee. His name was Ted Conrad. And she Googled him. And turns out that more than 50 years ago, he had pulled off one of the biggest bank robberies in Ohio history and vanished. But he later created this entire new reality. I mean, he managed to live a crime-free life, but on his deathbed, he obviously felt the need to tell his daughter about it. Can you imagine how mind-blowing that would be? And she, of course, now is going to make some money off of that. She's releasing a podcast called My Fugitive Dad. I guess the first episode dropped on Monday. It was July of 1969, and Ted Conrad had a job as a teller at a bank in Cleveland. And at the end of the day, he put $215,000 into a paper bag that's equivalent to about $1.8 million today. And he left. And when his coworkers came back to work on Monday, so it was a Friday, and noticed that the money was missing and Ted was missing, that's when the hunt began. But he had a 3-day head start. And it turns out that the year before, he had become, this is so bizarre, obsessed with the 1968 movie, The Thomas Crown Affair, starring Steve McQueen. And in it, McQueen plays a rich businessman who decides to rob a bank because it sounds like fun. And he watched the movie over and over and over again, and he thought, I can do that. As a fugitive, he was featured on America's Most Wanted, Unsolved Mysteries, a number of other shows. And meanwhile, he changed his name, settled in Massachusetts. And he worked as a car salesman. He went golfing. He led this absolutely nondescript, normal suburban life. So that'd be weird, huh? And he died. And damn if the feds didn't show up at his door, at his wife's door, like a few days after the funeral. Something in his obituary dovetailed too much with the facts they had on file about Ted Conrad. And so they came looking for him, and late, he beat him. Can make a good podcast series. That's true. I don't know, guys. There's such appalling stuff here. Oh well, who am I to protect you? Here's something that I thought was worth sharing as nothing, forget it. It's about Egypt and how strange its reaction has been to the Gaza horror happening right on its border. Stop and think for a minute, if you would, about all the other recent wars, regional wars that we may or may not pay any attention to. And what happens when someone starts bombing a country, a place? People flee. And they flee to neighboring states that invariably take them in. Stop and think about Ukraine, because that's one of the more recent ones, right? When the Russians went after Ukraine, millions of Ukrainians, millions fled across their borders into neighboring countries that took them in. In Africa, there have been, this is something we pay no attention to. There are now ongoing horrors going on there of war and death and people fleeing. And they're fleeing across borders and allowed in. And I was reading a story today about how Gazans don't know where, they were told go head south because we're going to bomb the north. Now they're going to bomb the south. Where do they go? And everybody's saying, where do they go? Well, I got news for you. Any other place, they go to Egypt. Egypt won't let them in. But I have not heard anybody talking about this humanitarian disaster that's taking place and how there is a pretty obvious escape route for these frightened people, civilians, and it's Egypt. Tell me how many stories you've read about how awful the Egyptians are being and how how much blood is on their hands. Hmm? In fact, Egypt's prime minister said recently, we are prepared to sacrifice millions of lives. By the way, the lives he's talking about are Gaza. We are prepared to sacrifice millions of lives to ensure that no one encroaches upon our territory. Like a desperate Gazan mother and child. And Egypt's stance here is totally out of whack with what most other countries have done during wars. They ain't happy about it. All those Syrians fleeing, all those, think of all the people, the refugees we've seen fleeing into other countries. The receiving countries are never thrilled, but they would not say we are prepared for all these millions of people to just die because we don't want anyone encroaching on our territory. Just want to throw that out there for you, okay? And then did you see the video of, God, it was truly unsettling to me. There was a House hearing, I don't know who's, what the hearing, I'm trying to look for, I don't know. But they had in the hot seat on Capitol Hill, was it 2 days ago or yesterday? Time flies when you're having fun. Anyway, they had the presidents of, let me get this right, the University of Pennsylvania, Harvard, and I forget the other one. It was one of those hotsy-totsy schools. I'm forgetting the other one. So 3 university presidents were sworn in at this hearing. And normally, I have to say, I would not find myself on the same side as these Republican congressperson, especially this horror, Elise Stefanik. But it doesn't matter because she posed a question. It's a perfectly legitimate question to these 3 university presidents, and they didn't answer. You talk about slippery sliding, politicians are really adept at, on the other handing and, let's talk about, and never answering. Even if you say, look, this is a yes or no question. No, you don't, And to see these heads of these major universities doing the same, the question was pretty simple. It was, does calling, here, I'll get it absolutely correct, does calling for the genocide of Jews violate the University of Pennsylvania's rules or code of conduct? That's a straightforward question. Does calling for the genocide of Jews violate? Okay. Is that something that could get, a student in trouble calling for genocide? And not one of them said yes. They said things like, here's a for instance. The head of Penn said, if the speech turns into conduct, it can be harassment. So what is she saying there? If the speech is kill all Jews, genocide the Jews, if the speech turns into conduct, it could be harassment, was her response. Which, if I'm thinking clearly, she is saying, so if this person kills some Jews, well, yes, I guess that would constitute harassment. What? And the congresswoman said, I am asking specifically, calling for the genocide of Jews, does that constitute bullying or harassment? And, it's contextual. That's what the Harvard president said. It depends on the context. It may be. Anyway, I have to tell you, if you watch it, I watched it and my mouth was hanging open. Stop and imagine what the reaction would be if you have students chanting to kill all black people, to kill all, just fill in the blank. That does not constitute harassment or terrorizing of your black students? Well, I don't know. So anyway, turns out our governor is on the advisory board of Penn, and he was pissed. First of all, he had gone yesterday to visit the restaurant in Philly called Goldie's, where all those fine folks were outside saying, Goldie, you can't hide. We charge you with genocide. They make falafels as a restaurant. But Goldie's a Jew. And so the governor comes from that, and then he sees the president of Penn and Harvard and this other school I can't think of, and saying, well, I don't know. And he said this, her statements were unacceptable. It should not be hard to condemn genocide. There should be no nuance to that. That was a question that needed a one-word answer. And the governor went on to say, I think right now the board of the school and Penn has a serious decision they need to make. I think he's calling for her to step down, which is amazing. There are similar calls for the president of Harvard. It won't happen, but that's where we are, guys. That's where we are. And then I'll stop on the Israel-Gaza thing, except for one quote that I want to share with you, because I just want to say this. I don't know if you have seen any of the more graphic accounts of the rapes and the torture of the women that happened on October 7th, but you won't if you're just, normal news outlets refuse to even print them or speak of them because they're considered so graphic. Well, these Hamas heroes not only raped women, they drove nails into them while they were alive, into their genitals, into their faces. They cut off their breasts and tossed them around playfully. The level of horror is unbelievable. And I have to tell you this. No Israeli soldier would do that, has ever been charged with doing anything like that. The Israelis just want to live. They want their country. They want to live. They've been attacked since day one. Golda Meir, a good Wisconsin Jewish woman. She was born in Milwaukee. Golda Meir, former prime minister, said this. And I assure you, it is a true statement. She said, when peace comes, we will perhaps in time be able to forgive the Arabs for killing our sons. But it will be harder for us to forgive them for having forced us to kill their sons. If you look at Jewish history, the Jews were not a militaristic people. They were always on the receiving end. In fact, they were said to be weak. And I still recently have heard people say, well, in the Holocaust, if they just fought back, Jews were seen as weak. Jews didn't attack other people. Jews were always being attacked and running. The idea of a Jewish warrior didn't really exist in modern history until Israel, when they had to become. But it is not in our blood to be. No. Even all the tropes of anti-Semitism, never of a strong Jew. Ever. That's not been. It's only Israel. After it showed, hey, we can do this too, come to think of it. How many Muslim countries are there in the world? I'm just asking. I don't know. Seriously, how many? Anybody do a count? Google it. Let me know. How many Muslim countries are in the world? I'll Google it. How many Jewish countries are in the world? Yeah, we know. There's one. And that one is not supposed to exist, according to much of the world. Not allowed. One little country. What's the count? Okay, more than 24% of the world is Muslim. Almost 2 billion Muslims. They are the majority in 49 countries. And the Jews, that constitute what, less than 1% of the world's population, have this tiny little sliver that wants to just be a Jewish state. And history shows that Jews could use a place because they're always being killed and sent out of and whatever, out of other. And if you think it's not true, well, then you're an idiot. I'm sorry. I'm so sick of it. So the Jews, finally, in Israel, they rise up. They say, you want us to be warriors? Okay, we'll be warriors. And the condemnation. Did you see the condemnation of the Arab warriors who kill other Arabs all over these Muslim countries? It's just beyond me. Let a Jew be a warrior. Yeah, okay, sorry. Now I'm done. My heart breaks. Okay, thank you, Milton. So of those countries, 23 countries have Islam as the state religion. There's only one country that has Judaism as a state religion. And nobody is saying Afghanistan or Algeria or Bahrain or Bangladesh or Brunei or Egypt, Iran, Iraq, Jordan, Kuwait, Libya, Malaysia, Mauritania, Morocco, Oman, Pakistan, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, Somalia, Tunisia, and the UAE should not be allowed to exist. As if any of those countries has not in some way encroached upon other countries and or done some warlike kind of behaviors. Nobody says they should be wiped off the map. People don't take to the streets. There's something about a Jew that makes people go nuts. Jews know about genocide. And they are not committing genocide. They are the victims of genocide. The only Jewish state is in a war for its very survival. It was attacked on October 7th. And the brutality of that attack is unlike anything we normally see at war, as horrific as war is. Because it was not war, that attack. It was depraved. And they're in the streets urging them on. And the president of Harvard and the president of Penn can't quite say if those students screaming about genociding Jews, calling for another intifada, which is genociding Israel, from the river to the sea, genociding Israel. That does not create an atmosphere of bullying, harassment, or terror for their Jewish students.
Right.
Can't say. I don't know. You got to give me some context here, babe. All right, that's it for me. I'm done. I'm so done. I'm sick. All right. Bye. Bye. Oh, send me more. Send me more of those. I got 5 more. They come in 5s. What is that now? They come in 5s and with little statements like, am I the last one? No, you're not. I'm telling you right now, you're not. Man, I have an audience of procrastinators. Although I have to admit I'm one myself. So there you have it. Come on. Keep them coming. LynnCullenShow@gmail.com. Your emails, please. I'm taking names. Mm-hmm. Toodaloo.
Lynn Cullen Live, Monday through Thursday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and archived at pghcitypaper.com. The opinions expressed on Lynn Cullen Live are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints of Pittsburgh City Paper or its advertisers.